History is made as Donald Trump is impeached for the second time, and we have yet another day where history is made. My goodness, all these days with history being made are really exhausting. I've got a monitor going off here, so let's fix that there quick. In addition, a representative finds articles of impeachment she could raise against Joe Biden before he even takes office, so we'll talk just a bit about that. All of the panic buttons seem to have disappeared from Ayanna Pressley's office. We'll talk a bit about what happened there. And Lauren Boebert is back in the news as a person who is possibly in the wrong for wanting to carry a gun on the Capitol. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Well, tech issues to start off with. First off, DLive wouldn't connect, and then I left the monitor volume on there just a sec. So, apologize for all the rough start and the cold open as we went here. But if I spend the entire show sitting here and apologizing, then we're never going to get anything done. And my God, do we have a lot of shit to get done again. I think we're close to 30 tabs once again here, but we're going to power through it all. And plus, like I said, DLive wouldn't connect, so we had to go and figure out what was going on there. Hence why we're almost 15 minutes late, but here we are. Let's get through all of this here, but before we get into any of this, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We carry great shows such as The Generational Gap, The Daily Ignoramus, The R-Rated Conservative, The Freckles and Brit Show, and The Breakdown with Birkenhoff. Come on over there. Pick up some of our swag. Help us support great creators. All right. Let's look at the numbers on the economy, or the potential economy, as one would say here, looking at the Dow. So the Dow went up, it went down, it went up, it went down, it went up, it went down, it went up, and then it closed just slightly below where it closed the day before. So a lot of people saw a few things going on throughout the day that they've decided that they want to jump onto and either invest or sell off from. Nobody knows what's happening here. It looks like the futures are going to come up as far as today goes, but we will see where it closes when we're done here. Looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin took another modest jump, $4,000 from yesterday. Bitcoin is at $38,649.10. So go ahead and check out your Bitcoin. If, once again, not a financial advisor. See if your financial advisor thinks that it's right for you, and go from there. I know that Ron had left a comment overnight that he thought it was just a Ponzi scheme, and he may be right for that too. So we will see what happens with that. All right, let's see what IBD has to say. Archive, because they tried to hide this behind that advertisement that we usually see here, but I caught it in time and I threw it on the archive. From IBD, Dow Jones Futures, Biden stimulus plan due, Taiwan semi-earnings, mixed, Apple, Airbnb, DoorDash, flash buy signals. From Ed Carson. Well, yeah, nobody's talked about coronavirus all fucking week, so now everyone wants to go out and travel. It's cold where some of the people live. It's cold where I live. They all want to go to Florida or Texas or California for whatever ungodly reason, but they want to go where it's warm and stay in the Airbnb and then order their food through DoorDash. Of course, those are the ones that are going to come up, and they're going to get directions on their fucking Crapple device. He says, knowing full well that he uses a Crapple device as a music player. This is from Ed Carson. Dow Jones Futures and S&P 500 Futures rose modestly Thursday morning, while NASDAQ Futures tilted higher. President-elect Joe Biden is expected to outline a massive new stimulus package. Taiwan Semiconductor and Delta Airlines rose early Thursday on their quarterly reports. Tesla fell slightly after safety regulators asked the EV maker to recall many Model S and Model X vehicles for a problem with their cars' touchscreens. On Wednesday, the stock market rally enjoyed modest gains as Apple stock and Intel led big cap stocks. The House impeached President Donald Trump late on Wednesday. Apple flashed early buy signals Wednesday as tech giants showed some signs of life. Though that's not entirely good news for the stock market rally, Apple, iPhone, and 5G chipmaker Qualcomm also is offering an early entry slightly below the official buy point. Meanwhile, new IPOs Airbnb, DoorDash, Duck Creek, and Context Logic broke out or triggered buy signals. Apple, AMD, TSM are on the IBD leaderboard. Apple stock is on Swing Trader. AMD stock, Taiwan Semiconductor, AMAT, and LRCX are on the IBD 50. President-elect Biden is expected to unveil his new economic stimulus plan today. It's seen being more than $1 trillion, including a big expansion of the child tax credit. Yeah, okay. The government, under a Democratic regime, is going to do something to try and make you pay less in taxes. That'll be the day. Watch for it. It's a trap. Biden is urging Congress to act swiftly. A wider spending package, perhaps on healthcare and on infrastructure, might come later in the year. That might include some tax hikes. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that tomorrow. House impeaches Trump. We'll be talking about that in just a little bit. On the futures. Dow Jones futures rose 0.3% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures climbed 0.2%. Positive Johnson & Johnson coronavirus vaccine news gave a slight lift to S&P 500 and Dow Jones futures. NASDAQ 100 futures were slightly higher. All right, let's see what MarketWatch has to say about this. Dow futures tick higher ahead of Biden stimulus plans, from William Watts. U.S. stock index futures were trading mostly higher Thursday ahead of a speech by President-elect Joe Biden that's expected to lay out details of another round of government spending designed to aid the economy's recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. The Dow fell less than 0.1% Wednesday, just ahead of a House vote to impeach President Trump for inciting the January 6th Capitol riot, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ composite ended slightly higher. CNN reported that Biden, who is due to speak in Wilmington, Delaware, is prepared to outline a spending package that would include more direct payments to American families and significant state and local funding. It is not a direct payment, it is a loan, people. And you are going to be feeling it come tax time coming up this next year. And there's a good chance, and I've been hearing murmurings on the wall, but not being able to confirm it, that this is also going to be taxed as well as taxable income. Not only that, it's going to fuel the debt to almost $30 trillion. So, hey, have fun with this, you guys that kept your check. Snip, snip, snip. Nothing comes out of the government that doesn't have a hook attached to it. And my lawyer is already set to take care of this if I do get taxed on something that I did not receive. Another round of large direct payments to households could be the trickiest part of the package, says Hussein Syed, chief market analyst at FXTM, in a note, because most Republicans and some Democrats in the Senate are against going too big. No Democrats in the Senate are against spending untold amounts of money. Now, we'll just worry about that later. It's like a 19-year-old with a credit card. On the other hand, opting for a small package will disappoint investors and lead to profit-taking in equity markets, he said. Finding the right balance will not be easy. Investors will also be keeping an eye on bond yields, which ticked higher last week and early this week in a move blamed on worries that another fiscal stimulus package could fuel inflation. That could spell trouble for stocks, as high yields makes higher stock market valuations tougher to justify. Investors could also fret that a pickup on inflation would see the Federal Reserve ease up on its bond buying program more quickly than expected. By the way, thank you for the host, Stephen Ignoramus. I see that out of the corner of my eye there, because I can't see it on the regular screen. Investors will also pay close attention to a speech by Fed Chairman Jerome Powell at 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Weekly data on the jobless benefit claims is due at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, which is expected to show first-time claims for benefits rose to 800,000 last week from 787,000, which is a distinct possibility because now we've got people that are getting blackballed from work because they went down and decided that they needed to have a selfie in the Capitol building. I know a few people that will be claiming for the first time personally. I know one because of that, so we will see what happens off of that. This is going to be an interesting time and an interesting 4 years, so let's see what's going on with that. We will keep an eye on that, as well as probably be reporting on the stimulus plan tomorrow. Let's get into the main news for the day. From CNET, Donald Trump impeached a second time. From Corinne Reichert and Ray Hodge. And you know what? In spite of all of this, unless he gets convicted and can't run anymore, he could probably run and win in 2024 still. Because they shot their wad trying to get rid of him this time. And he still has a massive religious following. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. That's the scary part, is it could. President Donald Trump has been impeached by the House of Representatives on Wednesday, making him the first U.S. president ever to be impeached twice. It follows last week's deadly riot at the U.S. Capitol, which was stormed by a mob seeking to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. And I'm going to come right out here and I'm going to say this is outright fucking crap. They were going to impeach no matter what. They have been talking about impeach a second time since before the articles got to the Senate the first time. They have been stroking themselves, whatever pieces they happen to have on this, on the thought that we're going to get him again, we're going to get him a second time, we're going to make history with this guy. we shouldn't have to listen to a twice impeached president. They have had a massive hard-on for this since they delivered the articles the first time. And they had something else in mind. If what happened on the Capitol hadn't happened, they were going to go after the phone call. And if what happened on the phone call didn't happen, they were going to go after the taxes. They were going to do this again no matter what. They have to get the removal. They have to make history and have him be the removed one. Because yet, I believe they have never had one removed. Andrew Jackson wasn't removed. Clinton obviously wasn't removed. That happened in my lifetime. I remember that. But yes, they're going to try and make history up off of this one again. Just you fucking wait and see. And there are going to be roadblocks coming in off of this. According to CNET, the process next moves to the Senate for a trial. If convicted, Trump could be removed from office in his last days as president before the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden on January 20th. That's if the Senate reconvenes swiftly enough, but Republican leader Mitch McConnell has indicated that he wouldn't agree to bring the Senate back onto the session before January 19th. According to the New York Times, it is unclear whether Trump could be tried after his term ends. Some legal experts say yes, others say no. And honestly, in Dershowitz, I'm probably going to be talking about this a little bit later. I haven't vetted the article that I picked up for this, but I believe Dershowitz has said that Trump would have standing to sue for wrongdoing if he cannot be tried after he leaves the presidency, because he will take an indictment without having the ability to defend himself, which would be an interesting legal case to take up. And yes, I do say that I'm sick of history being made. We need to have a day where history wasn't made for a little while so we can actually calm down and collect our wits a little bit. But that would be a history-making day to see. And we'd also get a precedent off of this. That would probably go to the Supreme Court, so we would get a decision off of that. So, we will see what happens with that. Let's keep going. From Yahoo News. The 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump. From Christopher Wilson and Crystal Hill. The House of Representatives voted Wednesday afternoon to impeach President Trump for his role in last week's assault on the Capitol, as Congress started to formally count the electoral votes showing that President-elect Joe Biden was victorious in last November's election. The article of impeachment charged that Trump gravely endangered the security of the United States and its institutions of government by promoting false election fraud claims seeking to illegally manufacture a different election outcome and inviting his supporters to attend the January 6th rally in Washington that turned violent. He threatened the integrity of the democratic system, interfered with the peaceful transition of power, and imperiled a co-equal branch of government, read the impeachment article. I was in the Senate chamber and I could have died. He thereby betrayed his trust as president to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Cry a little bit fucking more, you people. Trump became the first president ever to be impeached twice following his December 2019 impeachment for soliciting foreign election interference before he was acquitted in the Senate, because Mitch McConnell still had to fundraise off of him. Those articles had no support among House Republicans who unanimously opposed them because they were going into an election year and they needed to fundraise off of him. But this time, 10 members of Trump's party voted to impeach. Here are your heroes! Look at them! Here they're heroes. And we have Liz Cheney, John Katko, Adam Kinzinger, Fred Upton, Jamie Herrera Beutler, Dan Newhouse, Peter Meyer, Tom Rice, Anthony Gonzalez, David Valadao. And that is it. So now these people have moved on to having to fundraise off the president, to now they're going to fundraise over the fact that, hey, come on, just give me a little bit of money. Hey, I impeached that president that you didn't like. Just throw a little bit of money in my war coffers there. It's all about fucking money with these people. Fuck these people. This is why we need to severely limit the government and why federalism is a thing. Because we should be way more concerned about what's happening in our state house than any of this bullshit. This is nothing but something to sell commercials for CNN at this point. Making history, selling commercials for CNN. And you don't want to sell commercials to CNN. Sell commercials for freedomscoop.com. Fuck CNN. And everything that looks like CNN. But those are your 10. Let's keep going. From Fox News, what a Senate impeachment trial could mean for Trump and why it might not happen at all, from Michael Ruiz. The House of Representatives voted 232 to 197 Wednesday to impeach President Trump for alleged incitement of insurrection in connection with the mob chaos at the Capitol on January 6th. Whether or not the impeachment results in a conviction, it marks a historic moment in that no prior U.S. president has been impeached twice, but it also raises the question about whether a trial can even be held once the president leaves office. The earliest the Senate could receive the article of impeachment would be January 19th, a day before President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. According to Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, a trial could go on for weeks if it takes place at all. J. Michael Luttig, a judge for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit from 1991 to 2006, argued in a Washington Post op-ed that a Senate trial after Trump has left office would be unconstitutional. But other experts disagree, and Senate leaders in both parties appear ready to move forward. McConnell sent memos to his colleagues explaining how the chamber might proceed after receiving articles of impeachment from the House, and his Democratic counterpart from New York, Minority Leader Chuck U. Schumer, vowed that a trial would be held. Make no mistake, there will be an impeachment trial in the United States Senate, Schumer said on a statement on Wednesday. There will be a vote on convicting the president for high crimes and misdemeanors, and if the president is convicted, there will be a vote on barring him from running again. Seeking Trump's removal from office after Biden's inauguration appears to be a moot point. But a conviction would allow senators to then vote to bar the outgoing president from running for office again in 2024 and curtail his post-presidential benefits. By God, I figured it out. CNN has figured out how to sell more commercials under a boring-ass Biden presidency. They have found a way to keep people outraged until Joe Biden dies and Kamala Harris takes office. They have found a way, folks. Other officials have been impeached after leaving office in the past, but none were presidents. The Senate voted to dismiss some of those cases on the basis that the subjects were no longer holding their positions. However, in an 1876 case, former Secretary of War William Belknap resigned just before his impeachment. The Senate held a trial and acquitted him anyway. There's also a question over who would represent the president's defense and whether taxpayers would foot the bill for Trump's legal fees, which remains unclear. Last time he was represented by both White House lawyers and private attorneys. At least two of the latter were paid for by the Republican National Committee, according to campaign finance records. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't care for that very much. Even if the Senate moves forward with the trial, it could face legal and constitutional hurdles. George Washington University law professor Jonathan Turley argued Wednesday that Trump would have standing to challenge an impeachment trial in court if it began after he exits the office. As a result, the trial could be over before it starts. It will face a historic threshold challenge to Chief Justice John Roberts, he said. Roberts must confirm that he is presiding over a valid impeachment trial. The Chief Justice does not simply show up at any proceeding deemed an impeachment trial. His ruling could later be overturned by a majority of the Senate. A threshold issue is one that a court needs to rule on before it can approach other aspects of a case. So, we'll be watching this clearly into February, March, and maybe even into April. We will see. Let's keep going. From the Hill. McConnell won't agree to reconvene Senate early for impeachment trial, from Alexander Bolton. They're doing autoplay, but I muted them. Ha 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 ha. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's office told Senate Minority Leader Chuck U. Schumer staff on Wednesday that the GOP will not agree to reconvene the Senate before January 19th to allow an impeachment trial while President Trump is still in office. A senior Senate Republican aide confirmed that McConnell's office reached out to Schumer's office to relay the message that Republicans will not agree to a Friday session to enable House Democrats to present an article of impeachment to the Senate while Trump is in office. McConnell said in a memo circulated to colleagues last week that the Senate will not be able to handle business on the floor until senators are scheduled to return to Washington on January 19th unless all 100 senators agree to reconvene sooner. The memo stated that unless there is unanimous consent from senators, Trump's impeachment trial would not be allowed to begin until after 1 p.m. on January 20th, at which time Joe Biden will have been sworn in as president. If he can cognitively recite the oath of office. Not, what's my name? Oh, it's not Hunter. I thought my name was Hunter. I solemnly swear to uphold and, do the thing, man, with, that thing that my party doesn't like. Cool, I'm the president now. The Senate trial would therefore begin after President Trump's term has expired, either 1 hour after its expiration on January 20th or 25 hours after its expiration on January 21st, it states. Schumer on Tuesday disputed the claim and said that he and McConnell could agree to reconvene the Senate in an emergency session in the next few days. Yeah, but you have to have unanimous consent. That's the problem. So Ted Cruz, who's still going to fucking grift and try to fundraise off of, I supported Trump throughout this entire thing, can come off and give him the finger. And all of a sudden we don't have the trial. So, we will see what happens with that. Let's keep going. From Newsweek. Alan Dershowitz, Jay Sekulow warn against second Donald Trump impeachment, from James Walker. Two members of President Trump's former impeachment legal team have cautioned against pursuing a second impeachment of the commander-in-chief as he's set to remain in office for another 9 days. Trump's attorney, Jay Sekulow, who represented the president when he was first charged with impeachment at the end of 2019, said it would be a gigantic mistake for Democrats to impeach him again in a country already severely divided. Alan Dershowitz, the Harvard Law School professor emeritus, who was also a member of Trump's first impeachment legal team, took a slightly different line, arguing that an impeachment trial would not be able to go ahead in the Senate once Trump had left office. Speaking on his radio show on Friday, Sekulow said, "I think it would be a gigantic mistake to institute articles of impeachment when the president is going to be out of office in 12 days, so why divide the country so significantly when the president is in fact going to be out of office in 12 days? Whether you have the constitutional basis to start an impeachment proceeding, which Congress, as long as they vote it, they can have the authority, but then you have to ask, is that a good idea for whatever the purpose is?" The attorney later cautioned Biden to urge Democrats not to pursue a second impeachment of President Trump, arguing that it could divide America even further in the wake of the Capitol riots last week. Newsweek has contacted the ACLJ law firm led by Sekulow for comment from the attorney. The article will be updated with any response. So, come on, people. Just let it go for the... Well, it's too late for that now. But it's time to wait and see. And history will be made once again. Let's keep going. From CNBC. "I don't know that McConnell has a lot of power," says GOP senator on impeachment vote. From Emily DeCiccio. Republican Senator Kevin Cramer of North Dakota told CNBC's The News with Shepard Smith that he doesn't know how many wimps in the U.S. Senate who would follow Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell when it comes to President Trump's impeachment. "Mitch McConnell has a lot of influence. I don't know that he has a lot of power," Cramer said during a Wednesday evening interview. "He has a lot of power over the schedule, obviously, and the process, but I don't know how many wimps in the U.S. Senate who are going to vote one way or another just because Mitch McConnell does." McConnell already said an impeachment trial would not happen before President-elect Biden's inauguration. McConnell also said that he remains undecided on how he will vote. Well, he will have to look at the polling and see how much money he can fucking grift off of. This guy doesn't give a fuck about you. He wants his Raytheon kickbacks. He wants to make sure that he doesn't get impeached and removed from office, so he can continue to come out and say, "Well, I think we should be going to war here. Hey, defense companies, please pay me a little bit more because I'm getting you some more money here." And this just goes on to review what we've already read from CNET, so we're not going to go too far into this, but yeah, nobody knows which direction this is going to go at this point. But these establishment types can't sit back and grift off of, "Well, I sided with President Trump, so give me money and fundraise me and re-elect me, come on. Don't primary me." So we'll see what happens with that. Let's keep going. Matt Whitlock tweets out that Team Biden, and this doesn't go into a lot of things, but I wanted to, I just kind of wanted to put this out there so you guys, because this was just too juicy not to read on air. Team Biden is facing the prospect of having to wait weeks for his cabinet while the Senate holds an impeachment trial for president no longer in office. Because Jeff Zeleny tweets on impeachment, Joe Biden says in a new statement tonight, "I hope the Senate leadership will find a way to deal with their, the thing, their constitutional responsibilities on impeachment while also working on other urgent business of this nation," which means his cabinet. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If they draw this out for weeks, we have no cabinet, which means we have no fucking warmongers in there for at least a little while. Which, that makes me happy in and of itself. Let's keep going. From the Hill. Marjorie Taylor Greene says she will introduce impeachment articles against Biden. From Celine Castronuovo. Newly elected Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene on Wednesday said she plans on filing articles of impeachment against President-elect Joe Biden on his first full day in office next week. During an appearance on Newsmax Wednesday evening, Greene, a vocal supporter of President Trump, said that she's planning on introducing a measure to impeach Biden on January 21st, one day after his inauguration. Excuse me. I would like to announce on behalf of the American people, we have to make sure our leaders are held accountable. We cannot have a president of the United States who is willing to abuse the power of the office of the presidency and can be easily bought off by foreign governments, foreign Chinese energy companies, Ukrainian energy companies. So on January 21st, I will be filing articles of impeachment against Joe Biden, Greene told Newsmax's Greg Kelly. And so it begins. Now, I understand that under W, all the Democrats in Congress came out and said, we're going to impeach W because he's evil, and he's W, and he's a Republican. And there was actually probably standing to impeach W. He's a warmongering fucking prick. And all that he wanted to do was get up in office and I'm going to carry on Daddy's legacy and we're going to win that war over in Iraq, don't you know? Because we pulled out under Clinton and, you know, we're losing this here. And Daddy, are you proud of me yet? Yeah, W should have been impeached. Almost immediately. And, of course, every white supremacist, every person carrying a Confederate flag, every good old boy, and to a certain extent, every business leader, well, at least with any sort of business tax sense in America, wanted to throw an impeachment against Barack Obama for the ACA, for the tax code, for driving the jobs down, for driving the economy down. Once again, probably would have had standing, but we're going to go down into this, and now every president is going to at least have an attempt at articles of impeachment filed against them, just because they don't like them. And this, I mean, once again, it sells commercials for the mainstreams. It sells commercials for my website too, but it sells commercials for the mainstreams because that's what people want to do. They want to go and see the blood sport coming off of this here. And it's just going to keep going and going and going and going and going. Can we not do this until Joe Biden actually commits a crime while he's in office? And this is coming from somebody who does not want to see Joe Biden be the president, and definitely wants to see him removed from office. But can we not do this until he's actually committed a crime in the office? We're not fucking Democrats here. We're not Never Trump Democrats who sit on the South Lawn, wave our hands in the air and scream, "No!" We're not that. Can we wait until he actually does something? Seriously. The time to bring the China stuff forward was before Election Day, and the mainstream news media cut that shit out. Now we've got this little grace period where we have to sit back and wait until he actually goes into office and illegally takes money from China. Can we wait until that happens? Seriously. Alright, let's keep going. From the New York Times, a former newspaper. Pence reached his limit with Trump. It wasn't pretty. From Peter Baker and Maggie Haberman and Annie Carney. And I don't believe a word of this, but I figure it's worth the record. For Vice President Mike Pence, the moment of truth had arrived after 3 years and 11 months of navigating the treacherous waters of President Trump's ego, after all the tongue-biting, pride-swallowing moments where he employed strategic silence or florid flattery to stay in his boss's good graces. There he was, being cursed by the president. Mr. Trump was enraged that Mr. Pence was refusing to try and overturn the election. In a series of meetings, the president had pressed relentlessly, alternately cajoling and browbeating him. Finally, just before Mr. Pence headed to the Capitol to oversee the electoral vote count last Wednesday, Mr. Trump called the vice president's resident to push him one last time. "You can either go down in history as a patriot," Mr. Trump told him, according to two people briefed on the conversation, "or you can go down in history as a pussy." Folks, this is not newsworthy. And this shit right here is the exact reason that Well, that and the fact that Andrew Klavan says it, and I think it's fucking hilarious. But this is the exact reason I call the New York Times a former newspaper. Because they have gone from actual news, the paper of record, to this shit right here. And I'm glad I archived this before I brought it up, because I didn't want them to get one more click. I got the click to get the archive link. But I did not want them to have one more click of ad revenue for putting out dribble like this. And you will notice, I mean, if you look into news at all, if you follow news anywhere for any reason, that every time a New York Times article starts circulating, if you click on it or try to archive it, you'll notice that it's already been archived, usually immediately after it started getting circulated, because nobody else wants them to have any fucking money either. This newspaper is trash. It is nothing. It is propaganda at this point. The same with the Washington Post. And I'll call out the other side too, because you'll notice I don't use the Gateway Pundit. I don't use, well, let me rephrase it. I rarely use the Gateway Pundit, Newsmax, Zero American News, because they're just as propagandist to the other side. It's very rare, unless there's something that I at least want people to be thinking about, that they posted. And that's the same thing with this. I don't necessarily take this as record, because it's the New York Times, a former newspaper. But I at least want you thinking about the kind of message that they're putting out there. So, let's keep going. So, President Trump put out a video about the riots here. We're going to probably take about half of this, I think. So, let's have a listen to what President Trump has to say, because he's finally found a Twitter account that will host him. And what do you want to bet? He gets cut off of this fucking one too. Well, maybe not, because Dorsey actually got into this and decided he wanted to walk some of his shit back. So we'll talk a bit about that later. But let's have a listen to what President Trump has to say here.
My fellow Americans, I want to speak to you tonight about the troubling events of the past week. As I have said, the incursion of the U.S. Capitol struck at the very heart of our republic. It angered and appalled millions of Americans across the political spectrum. I want to be very clear. I unequivocally condemn the violence that we saw last week. Violence and vandalism have absolutely no place in our country and no place in our movement. Making America great again has always been about defending the rule of law, supporting the men and women of law enforcement, and upholding our nation's most sacred traditions and values. Mob violence goes against everything I believe in and everything our movement stands for. No true supporter of mine could ever endorse political violence. No true supporter of mine could ever disrespect law enforcement or our great American flag. No true supporter of mine could ever threaten or harass their fellow Americans. If you do any of these things, you are not supporting our movement, you are attacking it, and you are attacking our country. We cannot tolerate it. Tragically, over the course of the past year, made so difficult because of COVID-19, we have seen political violence spiral out of control. We have seen too many riots, too many mobs, too many acts of intimidation and destruction. It must stop. Whether you are on the right or on the left, a Democrat or a Republican, there is never a justification for violence. No excuses, no exceptions. America is a nation of laws. Those who engaged in the attacks last week will be brought to justice. Now I am asking everyone who has ever believed in our agenda to be thinking of ways to ease tensions, calm tempers, and help to promote peace in our country. There has been reporting that additional demonstrations are being planned in the coming days, both here in Washington and across the country. I have been briefed by the U.S. Secret Service on the potential threats. Every American deserves to have their voice heard in a respectful and peaceful way. That is your First Amendment right. But I cannot emphasize that there must be no violence, no law-breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. Everyone must follow our laws and obey the instructions of law enforcement. I have directed federal agencies to use all necessary.
Did you guys hear all that incitement to violence there? Did you hear that? He's definitely inciting them to violence. Just listen to it. All this talk where he says that they must follow the law and they must not be violent. That's a secret dog whistle to all his followers. Listen to that. Listen, it's horrible. It's horrible. Oh my God, something's gonna. This is what we're gonna hear for the next week, by the way. For the next 2 weeks. All right, let's keep going. Live chat back up for you guys. From Boston.com. Panic buttons in Ayanna Pressley's office had been torn out before Capitol riot, Chief of Staff says. From Christopher Gavin. As rioters began to storm the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. last week, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley's staff barricaded the doors to their office and made a startling discovery. Every panic button in my office had been torn out, the whole unit, Sarah Groh, Pressley's chief of staff, recalled to the Boston Globe. The buttons had been used before, and Groh said she had not switched offices since then. Exactly why they were not there when supporters of President Donald Trump sieged the halls of Congress was unclear to staff, she said. Yeah, you remember on Monday when I told Elaine that this whole situation had turned me from, just, it's a conspiracy theory, but there's got to be a logical explanation to it, chemicals in the water turn the freaking frogs gay! Shit like this, if this is true, just takes me further down the Alex Jones path. This all seems like a complete setup from start to finish off of this. And I would love to see more evidence if it pops out. But, yeah. Yeah, all of this just... I feel like Alex Jones every time I look into what's going on. With everything. So, that's what we've got to say off of that. Let's keep going. I got one from the Daily Wire. AOC says she almost died during riot. Declines to give details. Suggests conspiracy involving police. From Ryan Saavedra. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez claimed during an Instagram Live video this week that she had a close encounter with death during the riot last week at the U.S. Capitol building, but declined to give any details on the alleged incident due to what she described as security concerns. As for myself, I had a pretty traumatizing event that happened to me, and I do not know if I can even disclose the full details of that event due to security concerns. But I can tell you that I had a very close encounter where I thought I was going to die. Okay, sisters. And you have all those thoughts where, at the end of your life, and all those thoughts can rush into you. And that's what happened to a lot of us on Wednesday, Ocasio-Cortez said. I do not know what if I was going to make it at the end of the day alive. And not just in a general sense, but in a very specific sense. Why am I reading this to her? Because we can actually listen to this.
As for myself, I had a pretty traumatizing event happen to me. And I do not know if I can even disclose the full details of that event due to security concerns. But I can tell you that I had a very close encounter where I thought I was going to die. And you have all of those thoughts where, at the end of your life, and all of these thoughts come rushing to you. And that's what happened to a lot of us on Wednesday. And I thought I did not know if I was going to make it to the end of that day alive. and not just in a general sense, but also in a very, very specific sense. And, I think it's an opportunity for a lot of us to talk about trauma as well.
Don't care. Boring. Plus, I do a way better AOC than AOC does. Ocasio-Cortez later suggested that there was some sort of conspiracy that had taken place because something was wrong from the inside and that there were acts of betrayal by law enforcement that she claims led her to not knowing if an officer was there to help you or harm you. I'm on her side on that one. I really am, because something about this entire situation, and especially the fact that they all of a sudden had a 20,000 page domestic terrorism bill drawn up after this happened, something here doesn't add up. And given the fact that she is supposedly an actor on top of this, people, stuff is happening here. Stuff is happening. Like I say, I am full on the edge of, I will eat your ass. I am on that edge right there. My daughters aren't going hungry, okay? Okay. I want you to know that. And I got preparations. I'm close. Just because there's so much that went on here that doesn't add up. So, we will continue to watch this story as it goes. There's a lot more AOC stuff to go on. And I've got a dedicated video from her on a completely different topic to go along with this, because she's been taken to her Instagram Live after complaining about 4 years of Trump taking to Twitter to bypass the news media and the news outlets. So we will see what happens with that. We got to keep moving, though. From the Hill, House Democrats call for investigation into suspicious Capitol tours the day before the riot. Chemicals in the water turn the frickin' frogs gay! From Jordan Williams. A coalition of more than 30 House Democrats calling for an investigation into suspicious Capitol tours that took place the day before last Wednesday's deadly attack from a mob of Trump supporters. The coalition, led by Representative Mikey Sherrill, sent a letter to acting House Sergeant-at-Arms Timothy Budget, acting Senate Sergeant-at-Arms Jennifer Hemingway, and acting Capitol Police Chief Yoganda Pittman, requesting an immediate investigation into the suspicious behavior and access given to visitors on the Capitol complex on Tuesday, January 5th, 2021, the day before the attacks on the Capitol. The lawmakers say they witnessed an extremely high number of outside groups in the complex on January 5th, which is unusual given that public tours of the Capitol ended in March 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. They also write that some of the visitors encountered by lawmakers appear to be associated with the Stop the Steal rally that was held at the White House the next day when Congress was certifying President-elect Joe Biden's victory in the Electoral College. Members of the group that attacked the Capitol seem to have an unusually detailed knowledge of the layout of the Capitol complex. The presence of these groups within the Capitol complex was indeed suspicious, the lawmakers write. Given the events of January 6th, the ties between these groups inside the Capitol complex and the attacks on the Capitol need to be investigated, they added. The letter comes after Sherrill said Tuesday during a live stream on Facebook that she witnessed colleagues leading people on reconnaissance tours of the Capitol before an attack, which left 5 people dead and the building damaged. If you don't have at least a little bit of tinfoil out looking into this whole thing, and more stuff coming out of this, you're not paying attention, because something doesn't add up about this entire thing. All right, let's keep going. From the Associated Press, New York City to terminate Trump contracts after Capitol insurrection. I thought they already did that. From Karen Matthews. I thought they already did that when he became evil and orange and came down the escalator. I guess that sweet, sweet Trump money was... It was good enough to be sweet, sweet New York City money. But not anymore. New York City will terminate business contracts with President Donald Trump after last week's insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced on Wednesday. If he's so evil and orange, why did you still have contracts? I'm here to announce that the city of New York is severing all contracts with the Trump Organization, de Blasio said in an interview on MSNBC. De Blasio said the Trump Organization earns about $17 million a year in profits from its contracts to run 2 ice skating rinks and a carousel in Central Park, as well as a golf course in the Bronx. The city can legally terminate a contract if the leadership of a company is engaged in criminal activity, the Democratic mayor said. Virtue signal! I'm pretty sure that all this shit is shut down too due to COVID-19. On top of all that. That wasn't worth more than a couple minutes. Let's keep going. From the New York Post. Representative Boebert clashes with police after setting off metal detector in Capitol building. From Bruce Golding. Why am I looking at Batman in the preview video? You know what? Don't want to know. A pistol-packing member of the Congress set off a suddenly installed metal detector in the U.S. Capitol and refused to let cops look through her purse. Freshman Representative Lauren Boebert was denied entrance to the House chamber during Tuesday night incident. She later entered the chamber under circumstances that remain unclear. The new metal detectors were installed at entrances to the House floor last week after Boebert said publicly she would bring a Glock into the chamber, alarming Democrats. Boebert's stand against the metal detectors was backed by Republican colleagues, some of whom simply walked around the detectors on Tuesday night, before briskly walking through them without stopping Wednesday to vote on President Trump's second impeachment. Boebert was less conspicuous Wednesday during the impeachment proceedings, but her conservative peers, Representatives Chip Roy and Thomas Massie, breezed through the detectors. They blinked red, but Roy and Massie kept walking. Fucking based. And of course, now I was actually talking to my mom about this last night too. The mainstream media has come out to try and find a way to make this more panic porn because Boebert she's going to go and shoot up the rotunda, don't you know? That's why she's carrying it in there. That's the only reason she could be carrying something in there. Why won't you let them look through her purse? We just talked about this last week. The new Congress rules stated nowhere that it was unlawful for a congressperson to carry coming into the chamber. They had this argument. They're following the rules as Nancy Pelosi laid them out last week. It doesn't matter if there's a metal detector or not. They are allowed to do this. We reported on it. And if the rules had changed, I'm sure that Massie and Boebert probably would not be carrying coming in because it would be against the rules and they'd be facing expulsion. But there is nothing that Nancy Pelosi can do. Now, of course, if it's you or me walking in there with something, there'll be 25 ATF agents, 14 FBI agents, 3 CIA agents, 17 dogs, and a partridge in a pear tree coming after us. But, you know, if it's Boebert, rules for thee and not for me. That's what we're going to see off of this. Let's keep going. Here's the other promise video from Honorable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch. If any member of Congress so much as stutters to say that the Confederacy were traitors of the U.S., turn in your pin and get out.
When these rioters broke into our nation's capital, they flew the Confederate flag inside our nation's capital. Let me break down the historical significance of that for you. This happened. They flew the Confederate flag for the first time in American history in the U.S. Capitol. It didn't even make it in during the Civil War. And there were members cheering them on. Don't get it twisted. Don't let them act like they didn't. There were members who were supportive. You had a member of Congress from Colorado saying, my people are outside. They flew the Confederate flag when it didn't even make it in during the Civil War. And they said, those are my people. So let me tell you something. Let me share this with every member of Congress who voted to overturn the results of our free and fair, again, a generous assessment election, to vote to overturn the results of our election. If any member of Congress so much as stutters to say that the Confederacy were traitors to the United States, that the Confederacy is a legion of white supremacists, if you so much as stutter to say that, turn in your pin and get out. Go join them. Why don't you go join them if you are so sympathetic to them?
If you want to tell me that this Capitol siege wasn't staged because now they're prepared to start making statements like this, now that they're looking for an excuse to get rid of the First Amendment, abridge free speech, I got problems and I got questions. I have a lot of questions about this. I have a ton of questions at this point. Because a lot of this doesn't make any sense. And I hope that the rest of you guys have questions too. I really do. Because everybody should be questioning every instance of this at this point. Everybody should be questioning every single second of everything that happened. Especially when the Honorable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D-Twitch, can come out and say, okay, chicas, if you want to say the Confederacy was good, and these are your people, get out of my house, okay? So, that's what we have to say. That whole First Amendment, they found a way to crack down against it. This is the Patriot Act 2.0. All right, let's keep going. I got just a few more here. We'll do a thing I like and a thing that I hate and head on out of here. This was almost the thing that I hate, too. From Comic Book IRL. Marvel facing calls to cancel Punisher after his logo was used by some Capitol rioters. In a world where Spider-Man and Batman movies are in active production, it's Frank Castle that's managing to dominate the news cycle for a reason that many might not expect to see in 2021. Last Wednesday, insurrectionists stormed the U.S. Capitol in a domestic terror incident as members of Congress attempted to count the Electoral College votes to certify former Vice President Joe Biden as the next president of the United States. Blah, 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 blah. We've heard the story and line 75 million times since last Wednesday. After many of those insurrectionists were spotted donning apparel that included the logo of Marvel's The Punisher, fans are now wondering if the House of Ideas should cancel the character for good. No. 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 Now, throughout social media, fans of the character and fans of Marvel in general are calling on the publisher not only to address the issues at hand, but potentially retire the character from future stories. Castle first debuted in an issue of The Amazing Spider-Man in 1974 as a gun-toting villain. Since then, however, he's been transformed into an anti-hero, even though he uses his massive arsenal to mow down criminals in a storm of gunfire. More recently, the character's logo has been co-opted by the extremist groups that had a hand in the storming of the Capitol. It's also a tattoo that's worn by every single country hick that's also got a barbed wire tattoo around his bicep. Because while he's got a dark past, he does fight for mostly what's good. And just, no. let's keep going. Let's listen to Jimmy Comey. Donald Trump belongs in jail, ex-FBI Director Comey says while he obviously believes the president should be in jail, he doesn't think that pursuing that is in the best interest of the American people, adding Joe Biden should consider pardoning Donald Trump. Well, this is a hot take. Let's have a listen.
Obviously think he belongs in jail, but I don't think pursuing that is in the best interest of the entire nation. So I think the wiser decision would be not to pursue him. But whatever you do, the next president, Joe Biden, should explain it to the American people. Be transparent about why you're doing what you're doing.
Do you think Joe Biden should pardon Trump as Ford did Nixon?
I don't know. He should consider it. Now, I don't know whether Donald Trump, he's not a genius, but he might figure out that if he accepts a pardon, that's an admission of guilt, the United States Supreme Court has said. So I don't know that he would accept a pardon, but as part of healing the country and getting us to a place where we can focus on things that are going to matter over the next 4 years, I think Joe Biden's going to have to at least think about that.
And I think Comey is actually thinking of, credit where credit's due, broken clock. And I think Comey is an ass. I thought Comey was an ass for a while. He's just a political player that's trying to keep his name in the news and trying to keep a job in the FBI. Is all that I've ever seen Comey as. But, broken clock. I think Comey recognizes the fact that if they throw Trump in prison, that's going to be the spark on the powder keg. This nation is a powder keg because these people are sitting in their houses. They haven't left their houses for months and months on end. They're all pent up. They're all riled up. Many of them have lost their jobs. Many of them have lost their businesses. They look to Trump for leadership, and he sent the Federalist message back down, which I actually kind of admired. But they look to him, and some of them look to him as a religious figure. I'm sorry to say this, but some of them do look to him as a religious figure. And I think that throwing him in prison right now would be the spark to set off the powder keg. And it's not something that we need right now, because it will be bloody if it happens. And if Comey is at least smart enough to recognize that, then he can't be completely bad. He's still a bad person. But he at least recognizes what's going to protect the most people in this country. Let's keep going. From the Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness. Secret Service launches massive security operation to protect Biden inauguration. From Carol Day Loning, Karen Demirjian, Justin Jovenel, and Nick Miroff. The Secret Service and federal law enforcement agencies are spending the final days of the Trump administration bracing for a possible violent assault against the January 20th inauguration, launching a security mobilization that will be unlike any in modern U.S. history. On Wednesday, the Secret Service will take command of security preparations at the U.S. Capitol and other federal buildings, backed by as many as 15,000 National Guard troops. Dude, something's going to go down and American citizens are going to get fucking mowed down. Thousands of police and tactical officers and layers of 8-foot steel fencing. The high alert security posture is starting 6 days earlier than planned to coordinate roles for the FBI, National Guard, U.S. Marshals, and a host of other federal agencies that will fall under Secret Service command. This just reads like a fucking fear porn novel. Like, this reads like they're trying to get people afraid of something. Everyone can just rest assured that they're throwing the kitchen sink at this event, said one Secret Service official involved in protective planning, who was not authorized to speak to reporters. Oh, he was not authorized, huh? And yet somehow he actually managed to do so still. It's funny how that works. Well, I guess we're all going to be glued to the TV on Wednesday to see if something happens, but hey, maybe this will be what ascends Kamala to the presidency. I don't know. I'm not ruling anything out at this point, because just when you think something can't get fucking stupider, it does. Alright, let's keep going. I got one here from NPR. Twitter CEO tweets about banning Trump from the site. From Jacqueline Diaz. Won't you give NPR just a little bit of your money? Won't you just support them a little bit? Your tax dollars don't do enough for them. Give them a little bit of money so they can continue to talk like this and put you to sleep behind the wheel because you're listening in your car. Because why would you subject yourself to this in your house unless you did have insomnia and you needed to sleep? Let's see what Jacqueline Diaz has to say. The right decision is how Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey characterized banning President Trump from his social media platform, but he lamented that the move was divisive and sets a precedent that Dorsey said is dangerous to a free and open global internet. Oh, is it? What about the other thousands of accounts that you banned as well? And I'm going to call bullshit on something here. I've got to call bullshit on this. So, when I heard that, this wasn't just them going out and banning MAGA people. This was them going through and doing a routine cleanup of inactive accounts. I went back to my other account that I used to run under my pen name that never really took off, that I'm probably going to use as a backup account. I looked back at that and I said, okay, well, if they're just banning inactive accounts or kicking them off on routine maintenance, then that's going to be gone. Nope, still there. All 22 followers and all 163 posts are still there, no problem. I went back to go and check because I'm trying to get my handle changed to JEdgar101, but that one's already in use, and I can't get in contact with the woman in Australia that actually has it to get it released so I can get it turned back around. I reached out and I looked to see if she got banned because she hasn't posted since 2013. See if that one got kicked off because of, routine maintenance of inactive accounts. Nope, that one's still there. So I'm going to call bullshit on this inactive accounts thing. In his 13-tweet thread, Dorsey said the offline harm posed by Trump's tweets drove the company to kick the president off Twitter. Twitter banned Trump following the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol last week. The company blamed a pattern of behavior that persistently violated their rules. Facebook and Snapchat followed suit and have banned Trump's accounts. YouTube suspended the president for at least a week. Dorsey insisted that the internet should not be controlled by any one individual or corporation. That's a problem, Tim, and we're looking into that. This was his first time the Twitter CEO publicly addressed removing Trump from his platform in his meandering Twitter thread, because he's a raging hipster that thinks that he's special because he went and smoked mushrooms in Africa or whatever the fuck that he did. He said a decentralized alternative like that of Bitcoin, the digital currency, would be the best option for a free and open internet. We've controlled the narrative now, Tim, so now we can have this free and open. We've got our ends done. We've got our political ends to the means done. Now we can decentralize it. He pointed to Bitcoin's model as one that demonstrates a foundational internet technology that is not controlled or influenced by any single individual or entity. This is what the internet wants to be, and over time, more of it will be. Except for I'm going to pay the money to get all of my competition taken down until such time as the narrative is what I want it to be. And we've eliminated all the other people, the unwashed masses, from the free and fair internet. Yeah. That's all I have to say to that. Let's keep going. From Yahoo News, Trump is reportedly stiffing Rudy Giuliani for his legal work to overturn the election. From Peter Weber. Yeah, that's probably the best decision the Trump administration and Trump Incorporated have come up with so far. An increasingly isolated, sullen, and vengeful President Trump is serving his final few days in office in an emptying White House, taking out his anger on his shrinking inner circle. Yeah, this is objective. The Washington Post reports, Trump has never been more isolated than this week, the New York Times confirms. After we've spent years trying to turn everybody against him. And the White House counsel's office is now preparing to defend him in the Senate trial after he was impeached Wednesday for incitement of insurrection. That's a pretty serious... I think that was an overcharge. Trump is specifically furious at Vice President Mike Pence, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell having first fundraised off the Trump name and then turning his back on him, and House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Both newspapers report, but he's also angry at his allies in conservative media and politics aren't forcefully defending him after a mob of his supporters laid siege. They didn't lay siege to the Capitol last week. His relationship with lawyer Rudolph W. Giuliani, one of his most steadfast defenders, is also fracturing, the Post reports, adding, Trump has instructed his aides not to pay Giuliani's legal fees, two officials said, and has demanded that he personally approve any reimbursements for the expenses Giuliani incurred while traveling on the president's behalf to challenge election results in key states. Yeah, he just did goofy shit. I actually probably wouldn't pay him either for that performance. If this was my lawyer and this same thing had happened, and my lawyer had come back and said, okay, now you're going to pay me, I'd have said, are you out of your fucking mind? Actually, no, you clearly are, considering the performance you've given for the last few weeks. You are out of your mind. And I hope you get disbarred. And I saw a lot of people trying to, well, he's got to have the thing because he's got to have the evidence because he's a respected lawyer and he wouldn't throw himself into turmoil for that. No, he was fucking nuts. And he was a good mayor, too. That's the problem. That is the worst part of Giuliani, I think, is the fact that he had such an incredible career in law and as a mayor. He was incredible at his job. And just now to have to watch his decline at the end of his life. That's so sad to watch America's mayor do that. The work that he did in 9/11 should be remembered forever. I mean, I just wish we could erase these last 5 months of Giuliani in the public eye. Because he had a legacy, an amazing legacy in front of him before all this. But he just embarrassed himself at the end. So yeah, at this point I probably wouldn't be paying him either. And that is not to say that I don't think that he did great work. Because he did. Alright. Just a couple more, then we'll do a thing I like and a thing that I hate and head on out of here. Biden team asked man behind Operation Warp Speed to resign from Ash Shao. The man who was arguably the most effective member of the Trump administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic has been asked to resign by the incoming Biden administration. Dr. Moncef Slaoui led the Trump administration's Operation Warp Speed, which developed a vaccine for COVID-19 in record time, far earlier than anyone predicted. Under the current plan, Slaoui will stay on for another month to help with the Biden transition, CNBC reported. It's not clear who will take scientific lead for the Biden team focused on COVID vaccines, or if someone will be appointed to that role. I thought we already had them. We don't need somebody in charge of the vaccine anymore. It's already there. 2 vaccines are already authorized in the U.S., and 3 more are in late-stage clinical trials. Jeff Zients is Biden's coordinator of COVID-19 response, while Bichara Chaucer will be a COVID vaccine coordinator focused on speeding inoculations, the outlet reported. Yeah. You don't need somebody in the development team anymore. There's already development. So this guy can probably go off and retire on a good government pension at this point. You don't need someone to replace him. But of course, this is we got to get this guy out of here because he's a Trump guy. If you're really concerned about the vaccine, now is the time to coordinate, as it says, how you can get the vaccine out to as many people as possible. And that includes forcefully holding down people named Ron and sticking it into their arm to make sure that they have their 5G tracking. That is your concern right now, not trying to develop another one. The free market and Operation Warp Speed did what they needed to do. I'm still not taking the goddamn thing, but yeah, that's what they've got coming off of this one here. Let's keep going. From Fox News. Bruce Willis has decided that he needs to back off on what he said just yesterday. Bruce Willis admits to error in judgment after not wearing a mask inside Los Angeles Rite Aid. I guess he isn't going to die hard after all. From Tyler McCarthy. Bruce Willis is speaking out after he was asked to leave a Rite Aid in Los Angeles for not wearing a mask. Don't people like Bruce Willis have people to go to Rite Aid for him? Don't they have people to do this for them? The source told Fox News that the 65-year-old die-hard actor entered the pharmacy around 3 p.m. Tuesday and immediately made other patrons uncomfortable because he was not covering his face in the store. Rite Aid has required customers to use face coverings in all store locations since July 21st in light of the coronavirus pandemic. When an employee asked Willis to cover his face, the sources say he seemed disgruntled and opted instead to leave without buying anything. In a statement to People, Willis admitted that he should have masked up before going to the Rite Aid. Well, it is a private company. If you want to do business with them, you should abide by their rules. But this is also coming into light that California has a draconian lockdown and a mandate on all this. So, I mean, it's probably unclear to him whether he was defying the government or defying Rite Aid. I don't agree with it either. You shouldn't really be doing that, but I mean, the stores put out the no shoes, no shirt, no service sign to them, and you wear a shirt to go into the store. If it's the private company doing it, I have less of a problem with it. I still think it's asinine. But I've got the option to go do business with another company that doesn't require it, which I take full advantage of all the time, including the ones that'll stand up to the state government here in Wisconsin. I know the places around my area that don't have mask requirements, and I frequent them as often as I can. I know the places around my area that don't enforce it, and I frequent them. I reward them with my business as often as I can. But, of course, the pressure came down and the publicist said, Hey Bruce, yeah, you probably need to go and address this. All right. I got one more here, then we will do a thing that I like and a thing that I hate and head on out of here. From the Colorado Times Recorder. Colorado legislators joined extremist groups for a We Will Not Comply rally against red flag laws. This is the thing that I like. I don't know why I'm skipping over and saying the next one is going to be the thing I like, but this is the thing that I like here. From Eric Malbech. Approximately 200 people rallied at the state capitol Saturday against Colorado's new red flag law, which allows guns to be taken from people deemed to be a threat to themselves or others. Organizers of the We Will Not Comply rally included Rally for Our Rights activist Leslie Hollywood, conservative Facebook personality Sharana Bishop, and gun rights activist Lauren Boebert, who just launched her campaign for Colorado's 3rd Congressional District, where she will challenge incumbent... How old is this story? Why is this popping up now? Okay, that's the thing that I hate, because this actually popped up while I was looking up stuff for gun rights as a recent story. Okay, this is an old story. We're going to skip this one here. Well, I don't have a thing that I like then, because this story is already almost 2 years old. Haha, just kidding. Never mind. All right, let's do a thing that I hate, including the fact that I just embarrassed myself on air. 2 things I hate. All right, from the Daily Wire then. Pelosi, who pushed through non-gendered language rules change, calls herself wife, mother, grandmother, daughter. From Hank Berrien. On January 4th, Democratic members of the House of Representatives, led by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, adopted new rules that include requirement for gender-neutral language in the House rules, including the elimination of gendered pronouns and references to father, son, mother, or daughter. The vote was strictly along party lines 217 to 206. The new non-gendered language rules were highlighted by critics online Wednesday when Pelosi used gendered language as she spoke about the prospective second impeachment of President Trump. I stand before you as a wife, a mother, a grandmother, and a daughter whose father proudly served in this Congress. You were born before the United States was incepted. How could your father have served in this Congress? Let's have a listen.
This is not theoretical, and this is not motivated by partisanship. I stand before you today as an officer of the Constitution, a Speaker of the House of Representatives. I stand before you as a wife, a mother, a grandmother, a daughter whose father proudly served in this Congress, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr. from Maryland, one of the first Italian Americans to serve in the Congress.
So the father, that's gendered. You know, daughter, mother, grandmother, that's all gendered. But we have to have no gendered rules or no gendered language anywhere in the rules or anything else in Congress because that's not inclusive to everybody. Come on, people. It's the virtue signal. Just I can't do it anymore. These people are idiots, and I can't stand them. I couldn't stand the government to begin with, but now the fact that the mainstream media has sold so many commercials off these people, now they will not get out of our lives. I didn't know who the Speaker of the House was until Boehner. People. And I've always been interested in politics. I still didn't. Until Boehner, I didn't know who the Speaker of the House was. And now this is all that people talk about. Everybody across America knows who everybody in the government is, including the high-profile ones, especially the high-profile ones. This is a reality show, and it didn't start with Trump, people. I'm sorry. It started under the second term of the second term of Bush. Under W. We saw inklings of it under Clinton because that was the impeachment that we watched everywhere. But for the most part, everything that we're seeing right now started under the second term of W, and now we can't extricate it out of our lives. And part of that did happen to be because, I'm going to come up. I'm bright and shiny. I'm going to make politics. I'm going to make that into something that's going to be in everybody's living room, okay? But everybody's going to pay attention every time I speak. Because it's me. It's me. I'm going to be the one. Fixes America. I'm going to get us out of the Middle East. Except I'm going to bomb more people. And I'm going to start a new war while I'm over there. But don't worry, vote for me. But I'm gonna fix your health care by making it too expensive for you to afford. So that you beg me for single payer. Alright? So, that is that. The reality show is just... And once again, if we had the original Federalist system, where we didn't have to care who was in the federal government, and the focus would be on our state houses and our state legislatures. And all these people in Washington, people like Nancy Pelosi and President Trump and Mitch McConnell, all they would be doing would be coordinating interstate commerce and representing us across the world as diplomats. If we went back to that, none of this would matter. Of course, this show would be gone because I would only be talking to people in Wisconsin because that's all that would matter here. But now this is piped into everybody's living room, so that's what we're going to see. And on that, I'm going to head on out of here for the day. I'm going to go get ready for work, and you guys can go off to work too, if you guys still have jobs. Hopefully, if the COVID hasn't claimed your job yet at this point, I hope that it hasn't. So, that is going to be it. We'll be back here tomorrow, and those of you who are lurking, and I see a bunch of new names in here, which I'm excited to see here. But if you are lurking, make sure you get one more message into the chat here because tomorrow I've got names in the notebook. And I will go ahead and individually thank everybody who chatted in the live chat throughout the week, which is probably my favorite part of this week here. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to see you guys tomorrow with whatever else comes out of this, including I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about Biden's stimulus plan because they teased that in the beginning. Plus, I'm sure somebody else is going to break something across the country then. So, looking forward to seeing you guys tomorrow here. We will see you then. Depending on work, which we've been loading up on, I may or may not be back to play video games yet tonight. We will play that by ear. There will be more alerts in the Discord and over on Twitter, so you can follow me over on there That is at Edsblog Twitter with a 1 in place of the I. And I'm only saying that because they have Parler shut down right now. So you can go check me out over there, or the Discord, which is in the description below. Come on over there. That's where you will always find updates for this show. And we can also get a conversation going there. But whether we see you tonight or we see you tomorrow, looking forward to that. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.